So I set out some models. There's we've done over the last 10 years or so that I've been thinking about IDPs. We've had lots of conversations with PIs at UCSF and other institutions, funders who are thinking about this, the Burroughs Wellcome Fund, and NIH and IGMS, who fund research training. And it seems like there's several good models. One is what we call the 5 prompts model, which is your PI and you agree that you're going to write out the answers to 5 questions. What did you do? What did you say you were going to do in the last year? What did you actually do? What are you going to do in lab next year? Where are you headed when you finish your training? And where you're going to go do, what are you going to do this year to get to that outcome? Is it reasonable what you want to do? And how can I help you? How can the PI help you? And then you write out those responses and come to a meeting for a conversation. Very informal, and this works great for some people. Angela DePace, who's a PI at Harvard, actually trained at UCSF, I think, has her students do a free write, and she wrote a paper with her lab, and she and the mentor both write on a document. They talk about accomplishments, research goals for the coming year, professional and personal goals for the coming year, feedback for the student, and then the mentor, then the mentor gives feedback for the student, and the student gives feedback for the mentor on what they need for more from the mentor, for example. And then they discuss a monthly planning calendar with very big sort of picture goals on it. And this is actually one of her trainees' actual IDPs, and you can see on one side the student writes goals on the left side, and the right side the PI provides feedback. And I believe they meet and discuss this at an annual retreat every year, and then they agree what's going to happen during month by month on a single sheet of paper that the trainee posts up on their bench. So also very simple process, but it is a very structured way of having a constructive conversation about what's going to be done and why. Then there are some more structured, like very stepwise models that folks have used. My annual plan is linked here, and I'll share that in a second. There's another tool called My IDP, which I mentioned. I think the map is a really good tool for first and second year students, maybe pre-quals. I think once students begin thinking more frequently and more earnestly about what's happening after they leave, the My IDP tool has a more structured career information. So what are my career options? How do my skills, interests, and values options, and the resources I have for learning. There's a lot more about career outcomes thinking in My IDP. There have been some grants from the NIH to the department at University of Massachusetts Medical Center, and they have something they call a stage 2 EP that's focused on themes. So just to give you a real quick outline of some of these, the UCSF Graduate Division's My Annual Plan just has a bunch of prompts in there that talk about what are you planning to do the next year, going long term, and what guidance do you need from your faculty members. It just has lots of prompts where you set goals and then take those goals to a conversation with your PI. Pretty simple document. The My IDP tool, I mentioned these are stepwise models. You can see the My IDP tool is actually it follows the same outline as the 4 phases that I mentioned of an IDP. You're doing assessment, you're answering career questions, you're setting goals for the next period, and then an implementation phase. And within each of these phases, there's some sub-steps. So you can fill out skill assessments, interest assessments, what are my values, what rewards or outcomes do I want from my work? And then you can think about how your unique results here map to different careers. You can read about those careers and start learning how to learn more about those career paths, and then set goals around what you're going to do in the lab, project goals, how you're going to develop your skills, how you're going to move forward in your career. So it's very structured. And then you can print out a plan that you've created from your goals and take that to your IDP conversation. So like I said, this works really well for some people. Other people find it too structured, and that's why we think you should have a conversation with your PI about what sort of model you want to follow. Finally, the stage 2 IDP is also linked from UMass Med, and it's very themed, so you can see from the document here that it's what projects am I going to work on during the next year, what skills am I going to develop, how am I going to move forward in my career advancement, and it's more of a free write sort of model than the my IDP is. So I think all these different models, I'm sure there are plenty more out there, but I think any of these can be okay, but you should think about what works best for you and what works best in your lab and with your PI, and not feel like you have to follow one model. That's our opinion in our office. A really helpful tool that can provide some background if you're like, how do I write out my assessment phase, or what career considerations should I think about, and how do I actually write goals for moving forward in my training? The Academic Career Readiness Assessment. That's a product of OCPD, and Lawrence Clement in the Office of Career and Professional Development she did survey work with faculty members in the country and asked them, when you're on a search committee, what does it take to get someone hired in? How far do they have to have developed in a number of different dimensions? So research feasibility, publications, research vision and strategy, funding plan. If you go on through the document, there's quite a few other dimensions: teaching, diversity, and how far do you have to have progressed along these dimensions in order to be competitive for academic positions. But it's not just useful for a postdoc on the job market. It's useful for a first or second year student that wants to think long term about their training, or early stage postdoc that's trying to plan out their training goals. And so I think looking through this document could really help you create a better IDP if you spend some time with it. And the website is just career.ucsf.edu ACRA.